Okay. Oh, looks nice. All right, what up, what up? Welcome to DraftKings' nightly show, The Sweat. It's the right words from the right people at the right time. Hello, Jessie Coffield. I am Emerson Lotzia.
That you are. We're getting you guys locked and loaded, of course, for a 10-game fantasy slate on the diamond. What to expect from the Giants this season. A little preview there. And a look ahead to golf's final major.
Okay, so why the hell just not start there? Usual suspects, our PGA panel tonight. Jeff Ulrich, Reed T. Fowler. Some call it the Open Championship. Those of us who don't call it that still call it the British. PGA better or worse, gentlemen? That's the game we're playing right now. Rory on his home turf of Northern Ireland, the favorite, with plus 950 odds. Jeff, should they be better or worse?
I mean, they shouldn't be worse because he clearly should be the favorite this week. I mean, this is basically a home game for Rory. He's the course record holder at Royal Portrush. He said it's basically the biggest event of his career, and you got to believe him. And when you look at that, coupled in with the fact he's maybe got the best form of any of the big top players coming in, maybe outside of John Rahm. I mean, a win in Canada and then a top 10 at the U.S. Open, a nice warm-up event at the Scottish Open last week. You're basically getting everything you want with Rory McIlroy. So definitely deserves the odds. If anything, they should probably be like a little bit lower in my opinion, because I really do think he's the clear favorite this week. I think Rory's going to come out. I'm not sure if he's going to win, but I definitely think he's going to be in the mix. And at those odds, I don't think if he can get 9-1 or plus 900, I don't think it's that bad a bet, quite frankly.
Reed, 4 consecutive top 5 finishes in this tournament, but maybe how concerned are you with him trying to deal with all this pressure and hoopla playing so close to home?
Not so much. I mean, I think when you get Rory on any major track, it's kind of hard to figure out where his head's at, especially at Augusta. But like Jeff mentioned, this is his tournament, right? It's now in his backyard, so to speak. And if you like Jeff mentioned, the form outside of some of these other guys, like even Tiger for that instance, and the guys that are at the top here, and Brooks, who's won every single major known to mankind, it feels like, he's the best one. I mean, how many top 10s that you mentioned at this tournament? But just look at this season so far. I mean, the guys rattle off the few top 5s, a win, a runner-up at a WGC event, and win at the Players. So he's like, it's not like he's winning these Dustin Johnson-like tournaments like the Barbasol or the John Deere. He's winning these hard tournaments, and he's playing extremely well. Not only is he playing well, he's hitting it well, but he's also using his short game, which has been very, very good over the last 24 rounds, 12, whatever you want to say. Over the long form and short form, this guy is in top shape. So at plus 950, if you're looking at top guys that you want to back, he's not a bad one.
Hey, Reed, you mentioned Tiger there. He's plus 2,000. What are your thoughts on this guy? 3-time British Open champ, but he hasn't played since Pebble Beach.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming back from a long family vacation in Thailand. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. I don't think it's that much. Tiger knows how to control himself. He's up at 1 o'clock telling us to get up, and the Nike family to get up as early as him. He's played a couple of 18-hole practice rounds, one with Patrick Reed and then with Dustin Johnson, both on Sunday and then Monday. So, he's used to it, but Tiger is always in this camp of being overvalued at these tournaments. I mean, if you just look at his track record, not bad at the Open, but at the same time, it's like when you look at this plus 20 number, there's a lot of guys around that number. I mean, you have Tommy Fleetwood, Jason Day at the plus 3,000 number or further than that, that are more enticing than Tiger. If there is one tournament outside of Augusta that I think he would do well, or the majors that we want to back Tiger at, it's at the Open, right? Because the distance is not necessarily going to matter as much unless that prevailing wind is directly in your face. And that's only maybe potentially for a couple of holes here and there. But at plus 2,000, I'm going to be off on that.
Jeff, what do you think about Tiger?
I mean, if this is for better or worse, his odds should be better. And by better, I mean higher. Let's just face facts. He hasn't played since the U.S. Open. He didn't really play that well at the U.S. Open. And nobody comes in to the Open Championship without playing after the U.S. Open and wins these days. It just doesn't happen anymore. You can look at the trends. All the recent past winners have played after the U.S. Open. Most of them have won or come in the top 5 or something. I know Tiger Woods is great. This is a new course. He's old now. He hasn't even come over. He didn't even come over to Ireland until like this week. Like, he just doesn't seem quite 100% there. Doesn't mean he can't do well, but for odds purposes, I'd want much higher than plus 2,000 this week.
Still on vacation mindset,
Yeah, no, he played the practice.
Masters. I mean, he could do nothing the rest of the year. He's going to have a great year, right? So all kudos to him.
Played the practice round with Patrick Reed. That's got to change a lot. No?
I like Jeff giving kudos to Tiger Woods like he needs it from us.
Of course he does. He needs all the encouragement. I mean, look, he's still on the come. Just chill out, Reed, okay?
I will say this, though. If it is windy, I do like Tiger a little bit. I mean, if you look at windy rounds, like over the last 10 or so that he's played, he still hits his irons pretty hot. And some of these other guys, like a Dustin Johnson, for instance, may go the other way. So if it does pick up, which can change from time to time, he's not a bad one to back, maybe mid-tournament.
Jeff, what do you think about last year's champion, Francesco Molinari, plus 3,000?
That's what I think about Francesco Molinari, plus 3,000. He's just not coming in with the same form. And there's so many other players in this range I'd rather back. Justin Thomas, Matt Kuchar, like plus 4,000, I think is a better bet. Nothing against Molinari. He's been really good in major championships the last year, but it's just not the same player right now. You can see it when he was on. He was putting so well, ball striking so consistently when he came into this event last year. He came in with a win and a T2. Now he didn't play the week before. He's obviously still searching for something. Like I said, from an odds perspective, there's other players in this range at better odds. Kuchar definitely one of them that I'd rather back.
Reed, do you have a sound effect you can make for us to describe how you feel about these odds?
I don't know if I can do an ascending fart noise like Jeff there. I'm going to try it. No, that was bad. Yeah, exactly. Fail. But look, I think Jeff's just salty because he beat his boy Bryson DeChambeau in the last major.
Yeah.
And look, there's only one guy more boring on camera than Jeff, and it's Francesco Molinari. I mean, when you look at this guy, he's got really just no personality. Look, 3 guys since 1980 have gone back to back: Tom Watson, Tiger Woods, and Padraig Harrington. And it's not saying that it could happen, but a guy like Brooks Koepka has obviously the sort of the fortitude to do it. And I don't know if Francesco's not hitting it that bad. What really scares me, and Jeff might allude to it, is his putting. I mean, he was putting extremely well. And coming into this now, you're not going to necessarily look at Strosane putting as a top form, but I think within that 5 to 10 foot range, if you have to save par, because these greens are going to be small, they're going to be undulating, they're going to have a lot of collection areas around those greens. You got to be able to save your putts from 5 to 10 feet, and he ranks in the 100th over the last six tournaments, and that really scares me. So it's not so much his ball striking, which eluded him at the U.S. Open. It was really a short game that saved him at Pebble. It just is not putting well. So I'm with Jeff with the sound effects and also not backing Francesco.
Well, Reed, U.S. Open winner Gary Woodland brings with him plus 7,500 odds. Why are they so long? I mean, this guy has never missed a cut in 7 British Open starts.
I mean, I think that just goes to show you that no one has faith. The backers, no one has faith in Gary Woodland at 7,500. I mean, coming into Pebble, he was at plus 9,000. It's hard to really see someone who's won the most recent major be this high. But that's sort of Gary's MO, is that he wins these tournaments. He comes in maybe potentially missing cuts or shows some good form, and then all of a sudden he wins this tournament. And then the next 6 or 12 or however many tournaments, we just don't see him. That's really been how Gary has played his career over the seasons, where we've seen him win at Waste Management and then miss a few cuts, whether it be from injury or just lack of motivation. The U.S. Open Tour, after you win, is a lot. And I think Gary Woodland, with that being said, is someone that I don't mind it, right? Those odds could be better. But, I mean, when you get a past major winner, I don't think they're going to get any better than that.
Jeff, what do you think about those odds for Gary Woodland?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it looks pretty juicy. I mean, Gary Woodland at this price, he's playing well, but I still think they should be higher. But Gary Woodland's not winning the Open Championship. I mean, he's just not. It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's not that he's not good enough to. It's just he won the U.S. Open, and he's played once, and he was terrible in Detroit, probably because he was still hungover. I'd be partying for a month, too, if I had just won the U.S. Open, and I'm pretty sure that's what Gary Woodland has been doing. Again, the past champions of the Open Championship have all come in with like laser-like focus, great recent form. Gary Woodland hasn't played since Detroit, where he missed the cut badly in a weak field event. It's probably not going to happen. I think his odds should actually be higher than this. Nothing against him. It's a great win, but I just don't see it this week.
It'll be a better DraftKings play. And when you just look at coastal courses, Gary Woodland actually average DK points ranks second. But at an outright bet, that's tough.
If he sneaks in the weekend, he could definitely top 20 or something. So I agree. Could be a low on DK play.
All right, it is the first time more than half a century the British is being played at Royal Portrush. So Reed is going to bring us a course preview coming up. Plus, you guys are going to help us a little bit chase or fade some of the biggest storylines entering Thursday's first round.
But first, we're going to take a DFS look at tonight's baseball slate. 10 games right after this.
How's it going? I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. To firm up the back end of their starting rotation, the A's acquired Homer Bailey from the Royals over the weekend. The veteran righty is slated to pitch on Wednesday in Oakland against the Mariners. You can see below his overall numbers in his 13th Major League season aren't anything to really brag about, but Bailey's actually thrown the ball well as of late. He went 3-1 with a 3.48 ERA in 6 June starts, and so far, so good. One start in July, he wasn't bad. Look, he's a number 5 starter, a borderline 4th starter at this point in his career. The 33-year-old is serviceable. He's eating innings, his 4.80 ERA. Sadly, his best in 5 years. Bailey's striking guys out at a high rate too, 8.1 per 9 innings. That's his best in 6 years since 2013. There could be some nights the rest of this summer you consider Bailey as a value arm, your second starter on a large, loaded slate. Just as an aside, if you're an A's fan, don't be a homer and play him all the time. Not a good idea.
All right, lineups. They lock here at 7:05 baseball lineups, so let's go ahead and talk about said baseball with our panel this evening. 2 gentlemen, James McCool of DK Live and Awesemo.com's Chris Spagnuolo.
All right, time to price check some of the salaries ahead of this 10-game slate here. So there are 4 starters sitting at over $10K. So you got Castillo, Giolito, Snell, and Kershaw. James, you have been pretty fired up about this on Twitter.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Who's worth it?
I mean, Kershaw is mostly worth it. I worry about the other guys, though. Snell, he's gotten destroyed by the Yankees this year, and they're back up to full strength outside of Stanton, so I don't really want to attack them, and I don't think that I should be taking anybody that expensive with that much downside. You have Giolito, who was really, really good for a couple months, and I was really high on him, but now those walk problems are kind of starting to come back, and we don't know what changed, but he's kind of starting to lose that special something that he had for a bit. Maybe batters are catching up to the tricks that he implemented in the beginning of the season, but those walks are starting to come back, and it's leading to some problems. And then Castillo up against the Cubs. It's a good matchup for him. He does average over 20 fantasy points against the Cubs in 2019, but with the wind blowing out in Wrigley, that's a huge thing for home runs in that stadium, and it's a huge thing for offense in that stadium. So it doesn't really make me like him that much, but Kershaw is in a pretty decent spot. He does struggle with righties this year with a home run revolution, but he's going to be able to get through the lefties fine in that Phillies lineup. I think he can work deeper than anybody else above 10K, so he's the only person I'd go with.
Hey, Chris, which of these guys are you interested in?
So James just went all after my guy, but Lucas Giolito would be the one that I would go with. Because I think despite the walk issue, he still has a 30.1% strikeout rate versus guys he's faced this year. He's still also under 10% owned today on DK, which is pretty appealing to me because we also have him at Awesemo.com to be the top projected pitcher in terms of raw points. So I think you're getting a good upside there, a little bit less risk than some of the other guys. I think I really like what I've seen out of Giolito this year. And even if he does get a little bit worse, he's still been so much better than he has been expected to be. I think he's in a nice spot here. And Kansas City is not a team I'm terribly worried about in general.
Well, you guys are at odds, and so are your backgrounds. Chris, your dog is falling asleep on the couch, and James, your cat appears to be massaging the wall.
Fascinated with the blanket.
He's like,
it's a blanket on the couch.
He's making Bubby biscuits, is what he's doing.
Making Bubby biscuits.
What is that? Am I missing that there?
His name is Bubby, and he's making biscuits.
Oh,
That's what.
I got you now. That's adorable.
He is very busy back there, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, Chris, your dog just
sleeping.
She lifted her head up. And
if she knew there was a cat involved, she'd be up right now and perked up completely.
She looked up and was like, "What the hell is Dad talking about? Tell him to shut the hell up."
Yeah, she is tired.
I do have an important question for you, though, Chris, because we have 5 K outfielders, handful of them. I want to know which one's worth the cash tonight. So Yelich, Blackmon. I don't even know if Trout's going to play because I know he left yesterday's game. He's getting an MRI today on his calf, so that's something to keep an eye on. I think he's day-to-day. Gurriel and Bellinger. So you like one of those guys? You see a better option for cheaper?
I mean, I think these guys, a couple of them would be guys I would consider. Obviously, Trout, you mentioned the injury there. If he's in there, he's always a guy who's in play, especially at home. Same thing with Christian Yelich. Miller Park is going to enable lefty power in a really positive way. Also, a very hot day in Milwaukee as well with the roof open, which we did confirm earlier today. So that's going to be a thing. They're almost 90 degrees in Milwaukee. So Yelich looks fine. Bellinger as well, going against Zach Eflin, who's been terrible versus lefties on the year, giving up a ton of hits, a ton of power as well. I think the guy here, Charlie Blackmon for cash, is going to be highly owned in a really good spot here. going against Derek Rodriguez, a guy who benefits a ton from pitching in San Francisco. He's really not a good pitcher. Now he's in core, as we saw today with that early game. The ball's flying out all over the place there. Blackman in the leadoff spot, I think he's a guy you'd want to go to today as cash.
All right, James, looking at your article here on DraftKings Playbook, looks like you're all over Cody Bellinger. You think he has the most upside here?
Yeah, I mean, all of these guys have fantastic spots. I think I mentioned Lourdes Gurriel in that article as well. But yeah, like Chris just said, Bellinger is going to be my top option. Zach Eflin gives up massive hard contact to left-handed hitters, and that entire lineup for the Dodgers is just filled with power lefties. So I think that with Cody Bellinger in the middle of that lineup, he's just in a really, really good spot to get back into that home run lead conversation. Blackman up against Derek Rodriguez. Derek Rodriguez sucks. He's not even like a major league talent at this point. So him in that spot against kind of a tired bullpen of the Giants after that first game, like that plenty. Yelich, he's one of these guys that he had more – he was the fastest player to a 30 home runs and 20 stolen bases in MLB history. He's just insane what he's doing right now. And then Lourdes Gurriel has a really, really good home run matchup playing in that spot. So I think any of these guys is good. I like Bellinger the most, but I can totally get behind any of these guys.
All right, well, we have been anything but frugal in this segment. So let's try to save the people at home some cash, find some value plays. So, Chris, do you see value in any of the following options? They're all outfielders, all 25 or younger, and all sub $4,000. So, Jordan Luplow, 3,900, Nick Senzel, 3,900, Jacob Bowers, 3,500, or Christian Stewart, also 3,500.
Yeah, Jordan Luplow would be my guy there. We call him the ginger assassin on some of the shows we do here because he is redheaded and also probably the best redheaded hitter in all of baseball, I would say. I don't know if anybody could prove me wrong within the next hour, but just the guy on the year, a 328 ISO, 155 WRC plus, going against Daniel Norris, who's really not a good pitcher, giving up a 280 batting average to righties. I think it's a really nice spot for Luplow, and that Cleveland stack overall is interesting. I think the guy who could have the most benefit from that stack going off might be Jordan Luplow with where he's hitting.
James, does the ginger assassin appeal to you?
Yeah, the ginger assassin appeals to me. I'm going to be with Chris on this one. I really, really like Luplow tonight. The Indians are one of my favorite stacks. I think that Daniel Norris is somebody who people talk about how much power he gives up to lefties, but he also gives up massive hard contact to righties. So I think that entire stack with the Indians, especially with cores here, I think that it could be a really nice contrarian way to go. And Luplow gives you a little bit of salary relief out in the outfield.
All right, you two hang tight. Try not to disturb your pets as they do what they do or make Bubby biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We're going to need you to help us with tonight's Tiers contest as well as some over-under. That's right after a preview of the New York Giants fantasy season, the one coming up, obviously, which is right after Reed's course preview.
How's it, golf fans? Reed Fowler here for our last major of the season, the 148th Open Championship at Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland. The last four qualifiers from last week's Scottish Open and John Deere Classic are in, and all 156 players will contend for the coveted Claret Jug this week. Royal Portrush will play as a par 72 measure, a little over 7,300 yards, and will play host to the Open for only the second time in the major's long history, with the first and only being held in 1951. Ireland, and Royal Portrush specifically, is the only country on course to host the Open outside of England and Scotland, which is a very high honor but gives us not a lot of course history to rely on this week. The field will have all the top golfers in the world, with only Kevin Na and Charles Howell III as some top notables withdrawing from this year's final major. Tiger will obviously be in the field after a long family vacation in Thailand, and Brooks Koepka will be looking to take down yet another major, adding to his illustrious track record at majors over the last couple of seasons. Since 2014, the top 5 players in strokes gained total at the Open are Rory, Spieth, Stenson, Sergio, and Phil, but Brooks has 2 top 10s in his last 3 appearances. Guys like Adam Scott, Matt Kuchar, and Gary Woodland all have successful track records on coastal courses, along with Webb Simpson, who is top 5 in average DK points, per our friends over at Fanshare. Portrush will be a little different than most links or Open Championship layouts we've seen in the past. Although this course hosted the 2012 Irish Open, they've since modified 4 to 5 holes and are incorporating 2 from the neighboring Valley course and nixing both the 17th and 18th from that 2012 layout. It'll have the fewest bunkers of any Open Championship, but will still feature both thick rough composed of grass, heather, and briar, as well as massive undulations and tough collection areas around the greens. As always, the course's defense and the recurring theme from all the player interviews is playing the wind. The conditions can change not only in Northern Ireland on a moment's notice, but bring in the coastal location of Portrush, and it can change hour to hour. A couple of key stats I'll be looking at this week are guys who can get up and down around the greens and golfers who can get it close from 125 to 150 yards out, having to score or save par when they need to if they hit it in the junk off the tee. If we see the wind pick up come Wednesday, I'll take a look at guys who've done well in those similar conditions. But a cheap option I like this week is Webb Simpson at 7,600. Not someone who we think would be a good fit on links courses, but ranks out really well in DK scoring. Top 35 in ball striking, top 25 in proximity from 125 to 150 yards out, and second in strokes gained par 4 over the last 24 rounds.
Time to continue our series of NFL team previews. Heading to the Big Apple to see what's up with the Giants.
Okay.
With our DK Live duel of Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich.
Guys, the panel consists of DK Live writers and analysts. So now that we have cleared that up,
Okay.
they have ripped through all 32 teams. They have come up with who they think are going to be the booms and busts, I guess, in 2019. So as for the G-Man, they believe Saquon Barkley, surprise, surprise, is going to be the team's fantasy MVP. But who else could it possibly be, Reed?
No one. Jeff Ulrich. No, a programming note though for the course preview. That's par 71, not 72. That's my fault.
Oh, wow. Rare mistake by Reed T. Fowler.
You gotta call your mistakes. It's my fault. But going back to the G-Man, hey, look, I mean, who else is going to be the MVP here? I think this was pretty easy. I think the better question to ask is he going to be the fantasy league's MVP when you look at the top 10 or even the top 4 going off the board right now, with Zeke potentially holding out, right? Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and then Saquon Barkley probably going number 1. But you just look at how this offense is going to be composed, it's going to run through him as much as possible. Even if he's going to face 8-man boxes, I don't see the Giants going anywhere else. I know you bring in Golden Tate. You obviously lose Odell Beckham Jr. You still have Sterling Shepard. You signed him to an extension. But outside of him and Evan Ingram, who we'll talk about in a little bit, there's really no one else. Eli Manning's ADOT was probably, the 10th worst, or has been over the last couple of seasons. So you can't think that any of these receivers are going to have a huge season. You can maybe project where they're being drafted, that they might finish incrementally higher than that. But it's going to be Saquon. He ran 83%. I believe he was out there running 83% of those plays, or snap count, and it's just, it's going to be more of that. So he has to be the MVP.
And so, Jeff, you're saying it'll probably be Golden Tate then?
Sure. No, look, Saquon Barkley is obviously going to be the MVP of the New York Giants. It doesn't really even matter. It's not even worth talking about it. I think it is interesting to talk about him relative to the other top running backs. For me, it's not that Saquon doesn't have the upside of the other running backs, but I do think his downside is bigger than, say, Christian McCaffrey or Zeke Elliott. This is a player who averaged under 3.4 yards in 7 of 16 games last year, and it's not necessarily a talent thing. It's just that the Giants are the Giants. They have Eli Manning as a quarterback. It's very easy for teams to stack the boxes, and with no Odell Beckham, you're probably going to see teams do that more, just gang up on Saquon. So there is a little bit of downside risk here with Saquon Barkley, and it's just the offense that he's in. It's just the quarterback that he's got. It's something to think about when you're drafting your top 3. If you get like a top 3 spot in your season-long draft, I still think he's going to have a monster year. The targets are there. His snap count went up as the year went on too, blah, blah, blah. But, there's a little bit of risk considering how bad the Giants could be on offense this year.
Yeah.
There's definitely an argument, too, that – oh, sorry, Jessie, to interrupt.
Go ahead, Reed.
There's definitely an argument to say that I think a lot of us would potentially be higher on him if Daniel Jones got the starting position week 1. These defenses, even though he's a rookie, you pick him with a very high draft pick. Defenses don't know, even if he's going to be bad, what they're going to do and what he's going to do. Everyone knows what Eli is going to do. He's going to check down or he's going to hand the ball off to Saquon. So, Eli sucks. That's all.
Yeah, speaking of Eli sucking, the panel does predict that Eli Manning will be the LVP, meaning a player who's going to be overvalued. But Jeff, can you overvalue a player that you don't value in the first place? And as Reed just mentioned, with the addition of Daniel Jones, we don't even know if he's going to be starting.
Eli Manning is 2-0 versus Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Ooh, slate approved, Jeff.
No, okay.
He's been waiting to use that.
Eli Manning is still going to be the least valuable player of the Giants, even though no one's going to draft him, because he's going to bring everyone else down. He's going to bring guys like Sterling Shepard down. And the thing is, Sterling Shepard is still someone people are targeting in fantasy, and I think it's kind of a mistake, especially around where he's going in drafts. This is a player who the last 4 games when Odell Beckham was out, Sterling Shepard only caught 14 balls, on 31 targets. That's a horrible completions percentage with Eli Manning. Look, Eli Manning does not want to stand in the pocket and throw timing routes to a receiver like Sterling Shepard. Nothing against Sterling Shepard either. He's a pretty good route runner. He's a pretty good young receiver, but he just is not going to work in this offense for fantasy. I think you need to take a guy like Christian Kirk over Sterling Shepard this year.
Yeah, Reed, last year Manning had 21 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. That's bad.
Yeah, and I think he's only finished top 10 like maybe once or twice in his long career, if that. I mean, he's sort of this quintessential finish as QB 16 or 17, and we think that we see some flashes of Eli, and we can potentially use him as a spot start or streaming quarterback, and it's not the case. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, his ADOT is like 10th worst the last 2 seasons, and I think he has less total aggregate rushing yards than rushing attempts, and so even these guys like Josh Allen or Kyler Murray or other guys that even Daniel Jones, for instance, could have some runability as opposed to Eli Manning, who's not going to have any of that. Even if the locker room is behind this guy saying that he can play, guys have come out on other shows or what have you and said, like, he doesn't want to get hit, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't get why you want to bring this guy out as a starter, even if you want to ramp up Daniel Jones. It's not going to make any sense. And so for that case, yeah, he's the LVP, but I would argue Sterling Shepard at wide receiver 36, to Jeff's point, Christian Kirk, I mean, Kiki Kuti, these guys are being drafted around Sterling Shepard. I just don't get why this guy's going high, because he's going to be tethered to Eli Manning.
Hey, Reed, the DK Live writers and analysts think that Evan Engram has a shot to be the fantasy breakout player for New York. Is that the guy you would have gone with?
Yeah, I mean, because it's the law of sort of fantasy attrition with the Giants. There's no one else on really to target, right? I mean, Golden Tate is not someone that, like, we saw, again, his ADOT be pretty low over his career, but his run after catch pretty high. That could potentially be someone that's going to, quote unquote, break out. But it's Evan Engram in his, I think, 3rd season as tight end 5. He's being drafted in the 5th or 6th round right now, or 6th or 7th, which is, again, pretty high, to Jeff's point, for someone on the Giants team not named Saquon Barkley. But if you just look at his production and sort of to what we're talking about, with OBJ being out so many games over the last 2 seasons, we have a lot of data on guys like Sterling Shepard and Evan Engram and how they're going to play without that guy soaking up all the targets or all the defense. And Evan Ingram's production and target share went up with Eli Manning. So for that point, I think Evan Engram towards the beginning of the season with that production and just the amount of workload that he's going to get, especially at the tight end position, is going to be the breakout. I would argue, though, that round 5 or 6, a little high for a tight end. But I mean, if you're playing from last year's tight end, top 3 or 4 to this year, you got to get one of those guys early.
I mean, Jeff, for this guy to be the fantasy breakout player, you got to have a good or a decent quarterback here. We don't really know what's going to happen with this position.
Yeah, the thing is, Evan Engram has worked with Eli Manning, and maybe it's just a size thing. Eli can just chuck it up to him and he can go get it. But he averaged about 80 yards per game over the last 4 games when Odell Beckham was out of the lineup last year. This is a player whose 40 time is just as fast as Odell Beckham's. He's actually taller than Odell Beckham, too. He's a very, very athletic tight end. He's basically a wide receiver playing tight end. And that gets said about a lot of tight ends in the league, but Evan Engram is actually a wide receiver playing tight end. He's got that skill set. So I see this as working. I think he's got every chance to be like a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy this year, because I think the yards are going to be there. Even if the touchdown production isn't there, the talent is there to break off some long plays. Even with a bad quarterback, the thing about Eli Manning is, like I said off the top, he's going to chuck it up to a big target like Evan Engram. He doesn't have to necessarily time his routes as much. So I actually really like Evan Engram for a big season if he can stay healthy.
Alrighty, still need you two for some British Open chase or fade, so don't go far, please. But next, it's a DK Sportsbook edition of MLB Over Under.
Cool.
Right after Pat Mayo gives us his favorites for this week's major.
Favorites at the British Open coming in. Hometown boy from Hollywood, North Ireland. Rory McIlroy is the favorite at 8-1. Brooks Koepka is 10-1. Dustin Johnson, 16-1, the same as Jon Rahm, the same as Tiger Woods. Justin Rose is 20. Francesco Molinari is 25. Xander is 25. Tommy Fleetwood, 28-1. Those are all the names below 30-1. I'm kind of surprised that there aren't more names below 20-1 or 30-1, to tell you the truth. All the names we usually get are like 25 or 28. They're 30-1 or beyond now. So of these very top guys, go ahead.
The Open has been very kind in hitting the number that like 20 to 50-1 winner. If you sort of play them all
Yeah, Molinari
back.
last year, Stenson, Spieth would have been.
Spieth was a favorite,
I
but
think
it was
Spieth
a
was
weird
like
one.
14 or 16.
Yeah. Apparently, but that was the favorite at 14 or 16. So take that into comparison.
Remember how much money we had on Matt Kuchar to win?
Oh my God. I had one of those bets that someone made for me on those like off, I was getting British pounds that's better than American money if you're Canadian.
Yeah.
That goddamn, I hate that sandwich. Although things are Evil Matt might actually be in a great spot.
We'll get to Evil Matt. If he shows up to Portrush with like a brand new goatee, like Mirror Spock, I think we're in good shape here. And just get all your money in on him. The number has crashed on him right now, though.
Yes, but let's keep going on who's won this. Even going back to L's, I think it was like at 44. Phil would have been like 26 or 30. Who did we? Zach was the big one.
Yeah, Zach won at 80.
Yeah, he won at 80.
And that's still really confusing that he won at St. Andrews.
And he even, because a good buddy of mine made the live bet. Sunday morning, he was still Sunday. It was a Monday because we were at the office.
Oh, that's right.
And it was the day Leishman, Spieth,
Day,
Louis.
Yeah,
right? Am I naming everyone?
I feel like Day and Louis just missed that playoff by a stroke because it looked like Day was going to win. It was a lot like how that Zurich set up that time when they canceled the round. The Day was just heating up at the right time, and then he couldn't get into the playoff.
And Zach was even like 30-1 that morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's the real outlier, but just continuing, everybody that seems that's won this thing recently, Pat, we've seen form on either side of the pond.
Would you like to hear some trends?
Give them all to me.
I got some trends for you. And this will be from my column up on DKPlaybook.com. I'll just read from it because I've already written it down. Lead-in form. 2 of the past 6 champion golfers won their last start prior to hosting the Claret Jug. 4 of the past 6 have a victory in one of their 2 lead-in events to the British Open. 5 of the past 6 have a win in their previous 5 starts. The only outlier from that list is Zach Johnson, who had 3 top 10 finishes in his previous 5 starts coming into St. Andrews. So if that's the criteria, you had to win once in your past 5 starts or have 3 top 10s in your past 5 starts. It really narrows the list down to a few guys. You have Brooks. You have Rory. You have Bernd Wiesberger. Whoever wins the John Deere, I suppose.
Rahm?
Rahm. No, and I guess the other one is each one of them had a top 10 finish at the British Open in the past 5 years. So Rahm is out because of that.
But he's such a great links player that you almost want to like put him in.
But he's as a part of this trend, he is not.
Yes.
So it's Brooks, it's Rory, it's Wiesberger, and a guy I've bet on at 80-1, Rafa Cabrera-Bello.
Okay.
Alrighty then, DK Live, James McCool, Awesemo.com's Chris Spagnuolo. They have returned. We're going to talk baseball again, but poking over to the sportsbook side of things for some over-under discussion.
So, Chris, the Red Sox-Blue Jays game has a 10.5 total. You feeling the over or the under here?
I think it's an over day for me. A lot of these games on the East Coast, I really would tend to favor the over because the heat there is going to be a lot. Also, you have 2 pitchers there with Porcello and Thornton who are going to have a fly ball rate over 40%. So that ball is going to travel pretty well. And I think, honestly, with the Boston team alone, they have a 280 batting average in this lineup today, as well as a 198 ISO. So they alone, they've shelled Thornton once this year. They're in a nice spot to do it again. I think they may get to that run total by themselves. I think it's a really strong spot to take the over.
James can confirm it's hot here.
Yeah, can confirm that it's hot there and can confirm that both of these pitchers are very bad and very home run prone and should give up plenty of runs. And even with that being said, like the bullpen for the Blue Jays sucks too. They're giving up a 454 slugging percentage as a group. I mean, just all together, I'm going to take the over on this spot. I really like this for DFS as well. The Red Sox rate out really, really well for me, and the Blue Jays, I think, make for really good one-offs. Guys like Daniel Jensen and even Billy McKinney, who's in the lineup today, as a really cheap play that has a lot of power against righties. So I really like the over here.
All right, James, right under that is a 10-game total between the Braves and the Brewers. So which direction would you like to go in here?
I like the under on this one, actually. So the heat is an issue, and with the roof being open, it's an issue. But I actually kind of respect Adrian Hauser, even if he's had bad games going through. I think that the underlying stats are better than what he's shown. He's not getting to as many 2K counts as I would like to see. But the strikeout rate is respectable, and the xFIP is respectable, and the SARA is respectable. And I don't think that he's somebody who's going to be giving up 6 runs per outing. I think he can probably hold the Braves to maybe 2 or 3 runs, and then hopefully the bullpen can keep them down. And then on the other side of that, the Brewers are a good team, but they have had their issues racking up serious run totals lately. And I like Max Fried. He's another person who I am higher probably on than the community. He did have that bad outing against the Marlins, and I think that people are going to have that confirmation bias and say, oh, well, he sucks. But he doesn't suck. He's pretty good. A sub-4 Sierra, actually, 3.5 Sierra. So that's one of the best on this slate. So I'm going to take the under on it.
All right, Chris. Well, that said, the total has hit the over in 5 of Milwaukee's last 6 games. So what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'm also going to go over here too. I agree with James. I think that Hauser and Fried are both solid pitchers, but I think they're guys who've benefited from it being a little bit cooler to start the year. Now we're in the full swing of the heat here, the heat wave of summer, as we guys have talked about. It's pretty much everywhere on the slate. All the games today, for the most part, pretty hot all across the board. And this one, as I mentioned earlier, Milwaukee's going to be about 90 degrees today at the time the first pitch goes off. That's a really hot day in Milwaukee, and that's already a park that's a limit that's helping out power quite a bit as well, especially for lefties. And you're going to have a lot of quality lefty hitters in this game. I think the spot here, I'd take the over here and not worry so much about the quality of the pitchers involved.
All right, well, James or Chris, the Dodgers bring with them a 5.5 team total. This is what happens when you don't have a teleprompter, guys. They're coming off a late 12-inning game last night. The Dodgers are. So, Chris, you thinking they're going to be tired? Stay under this?
Mm-hmm. I think hitters, I'm not so much worried about tiredness. I mean, a pitcher, obviously, or a bullpen even, you can make an argument for that. But hitters, I think they're good at doing their job and getting back up there. I think the lefty spot versus Eflin is too good to avoid here. He's got a 278 batting average and 4.6% home run rate allowed to lefties. And he's getting a really strong Dodgers lineup with a lot of lefties. And also the Dodgers lefties are some of the best hitting lefties in the league. So I think Eflin here just really out of his depth in this spot. And another hot day as well in Philadelphia where the ball should fly pretty well. So I would take the over for the Dodgers as well.
James, you want to go over on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go over on this one. The Dodgers have so many strong lefties to take advantage of Eflin's issues, and they're playing in a park that actually lends itself well to left-handed power. It actually has one of the highest home run rates to lefties in the league in terms of park factors. So when you combine that with a whole bunch of guys that are left-handed hitters that are going up against a bad righty, they're in their platoon split. I don't really care. They played 12 innings yesterday. I really like going over their total. The Dodgers are my favorite stack for the day, so I definitely like them over here.
Well, James, a man you share a name with, James Paxton, has a strikeout total set at 6.5. What's he going to do here? Because I know he dominated the Rays back on July 7th with 11 strikeouts.
Yeah, so the Rays have issues against left-handed pitchers. And, I know that they are kind of looking scary because they went up against the almighty freaking Orioles, who just give up home runs to every single person that's standing in the stadium. But I don't think that's going to happen here. Paxton has had his issues for sure. He came off of the IL, and he was giving up home runs like no one's business. He had those walk issues, but he's calming down a little bit. And I do think that he can get to this Rays lineup again. They don't really scare me. He still has a high strikeout rate. He's still getting 2 strikes often. Sierra's good. I really like him to hit the over on that prop.
All right, Chris, so diving a little deeper here. I mean, you look at this projected lineup for the Rays, 5 batters with a WOBA over 340, just 3 batters with a strikeout rate over 21%. Could be a little difficult to hit the over.
Yeah, that's for that reason too. I think I'm inclined to take this as my first under of the day. I think the spot here is a decent one overall, and Paxton has been pretty good, about a 29% strikeout rate on the year, which is about as solid as you'll find on the slate. But I think the spot here, as you mentioned, there's only 3 guys above league average in terms of strikeouts. I think the spot is a tough one again with the heat. It's really going to favor batters for the most part, and Paxton's actually been giving up pretty decent contact, at least relative to where he was going back to last year. So I think Paxton's a guy. He's a fine pitcher, a really good pitcher, but when the heat is around, you want to favor the hitters, and I would be inclined to go under here, even though Paxton is a strong DFS play with where his price is today on DraftKings.
All right, we're going to hit out tonight's Tiers contest with you two coming up. But first, here's Mike Francesa dishing some hot takes on the NFL.
Spicy.
Let's mix in some football here. Training camp's opening up this month. Chargers running back Melvin Gordon, he told the team he wants a new contract or he wants out, wants to be traded. No new deal, no camp. And we've heard this before. Some guys will do that. They'll hold out. Le'Veon Bell. Gordon is entering the last year of his contract, though, nearly $6 million, so you could certainly argue he's underpaid, but again, rookie contract is what it is. Last year, 15 touchdowns, I think, maybe 14, 115 yards per game from scrimmage, most since LaDainian Tomlinson, the other LT, back in 2007. So should Los Angeles cave or move him, or do you think he's bluffing?
Don't know him well enough to know if he's bluffing or not. I think that he will get paid. I think that he's been deserving of the contract. I think they think they're close enough that they need to not have the disruption this year. So I think they'll pay him. I think he's earned the money. Again, I don't like to pay running backs a ton of money, but he's not making a ton of money. He really isn't. He's making a legitimate contract. They're a good team. They need him, so I think they'll pay him.
Another star running back in LA is Todd Gurley, and he recently complained about the pay gap between the NFL and NBA players. Should football players earn as much as basketball players? Is he right to do that?
I think he should take out and realize that I think all Gurley has to do is look at how many players are on a football team and how many players are on a basketball team and figure it out that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Or understand that he should change his position and go play quarterback if he wants to make. Because running backs don't get paid like quarterbacks, as we know. He's in the wrong position, and they're never going to get paid on a team where you have 3 players that you're paying a ton of money to. It's not the same thing as having a football team where you got to pay 50-some-odd guys and really have, in essence, about 70 guys or 60-something guys on the contract. So it's not even worth discussing. It's just someone who doesn't understand anything about the economics of the sport.
So with the NFL season on the way, the DK Sportsbook has odds on win totals. I'm going to give you a bunch of over-unders. I'm not going to run through the whole league, but I'll give you some. Pay attention to them because I want you to give me 2 good bets to go over and 2 to go under. All right?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Patriots at 11, Chiefs at 10, Browns 9.5, Jets 7.5, Niners 7.5, the Raiders 6, Giants 5.5, Cardinals 5.
Okay.
So who do you like to go over?
Over the Chiefs 10. Chiefs are on a mission. Every step they take, every move they make, they will mortgage their future. They will sell their homes. They will do anything they have to do to win this year. They think this is their year. They have done everything to do that. They will win more than 10 games. I would never bet against New England. Winning any number.
11's a close number, though.
11's a hard number. I understand you got to win 12 to win, but you know what? I'm not betting against them. I wouldn't bet on them, but I'm not betting against them. Chiefs over 10, lock it up. I take the Giants over 5.5. They can do that. The only way that doesn't happen is if they bench Eli Manning early, which could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful. That could happen. But if it doesn't happen, they will win over 6 games. You can, I think, count on that. They're improved on the offensive line. They will have a good offense. They also do not play the toughest schedule this year. And it's a schedule which is critical that they can get off to a good start with. That is critical in the league. Always be afraid of teams, and when you're looking at over-unders, always look at whether a team can get off to a bad start. Bad starts kill good teams, and bad starts elevate. Good starts elevate so-so teams. So so-so teams start to buy in. There's a cohesiveness. There's a feeling in camp, and all of a sudden you can make 2 or 3 extra wins out of that just because of the good feelings, the kindred spirits, everything that comes with getting off to a good start. So that's very important. So I would say the 2 that jump out on me there were Chiefs over 10 and Giants over 5.5.
Any unders in that group? How about Browns 9.5? I know you're not high on them.
I think they could be. I'm not high on them, but I think they could be around the number. I think they could be 8 or 9. So I don't think it's one that just jumps out at me. I think if you put a gun to my head, I take under, but it's not one that jumps out at me one way or the other.
Raiders at 6, Cardinals at 5.
I wouldn't touch either one. I think they both struggle to get to those numbers. I think they'll be right around those numbers.
No, so probably unders as well.
I wouldn't touch that. I think it's close enough where on a good year the Raiders could win 6. I think Arizona winning 5 probably less likely, but I would probably go under there if you put a gun to my head again. But like I said, the 2 that jump, when I look at those, I want to see a gap where I think it's going to be a couple of games above the number. I think Kansas City will win upwards of 12 games. And I think the Giants will win probably 7 games minimum. So I would say I would put the Giants over and Kansas City over.
All right, we hit on some of the odds for guys entering the British Open this week. So now let's chase or fade some of the storylines Jeff's back. Reed's back. Jessie has our first question.
So Brooks Koepka has dominated the U.S. Open and PGA Championship recently.
So hot.
But has never won the British. So chase or fade, this is his best chance to win this major, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll fade this. I mean, look, Brooks is fine. He's having a great season, obviously. It wouldn't shock me if he won or anything like that, but I don't think he's going to. Again, he just hasn't had the lead-in that typically the Open champions in the past have had. He's played once, and he really didn't play that well since the U.S. Open. So if you're asking me if this is going to be like his best chance ever, I don't think it's going to be. I think you're going to see him get some more experience this year. And I think possibly in 2021, when the Open goes back to St. Andrews, which is a nice big Open-style venue, been very good to Bombers in the past, I think that's when Brooks Koepka might pick up his first Open championship. But I don't think it's going to be this year.
Reed, how much do you like this part of Narrative Street? His caddy, Ricky Elliott, is a Portrush native.
Oh.
Thank you, Jesse. That is exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, like 90%. He's better. The caddies gonna know more than 90% of these guys, or however many we want to say in terms of percentage of who knows this course. It hasn't been played here since 1951. So now you get a local at this course as your caddy, who's obviously going to help you. Obviously has helped you in the past win a ton of majors. Anytime Brooks steps foot on a major, it is his best chance to win. Now, Jeff's right to an extent that there are better tracks for guys like Brooks, but there's no one like Brooks Koepka. I mean, this guy absolutely obliterates majors. And if you look at where he's been over the last 3 or 4 years, he's got 2 top 10s that, in terms of, if you want to use corollaries, take anyone like Liverpool or Birkdale. He's played well at these type of tournaments. I know a lot of us and the coverage will say that he started his career on the Euro Tour even before that. So it's not like it's foreign to him at all. So when you look at Brooks, I've been in the camp that's faded Brooks before, and it's gone completely wrong in my favor. So I'm not fading this. I'm chasing it.
Reed, what about Jon Rahm? Hasn't finished better than, 44th in this tournament. However, a pair of top 10 finishes in majors this season. So chase or fade, the fiery Spaniard here actually finishes top 10 or better this weekend.
Yeah, I'll chase this. Jeff mentioned it. We talk about guys who are in good form, and Jon Rahm won the Scottish Open last week. That's pretty good form when you're talking about what you want, not just for a guy like Jon Rahm who needs to have that confidence coming in and not be potentially breaking his clubs over his knee because he's getting angry about hitting it a little bit wayward, because he's not a guy that hits it in their fairway a ton. I think over the last 24 rounds, he's ranked over 80th in the field. And so when you get a guy like Jon Rahm, who's been, again, playing well, who has recorded a ton of top 5s and a ton of top 10s, granted, recent form with this major might not be the best, but Jon Rahm also does in terms of maybe DraftKings more so than if you want to get that top 10 finish or top 10 each way, which doesn't really make sense for a guy that's going to be this short in terms of odds. You look at that, he does well on coastal courses. He does well on coastal courses, and he does well in California. So when you look at what you get for the top, 5 or 10 golfers, this guy in terms of DK is averaging around 78, 80 points. Not a bad way, but he's going to be highly owned because of that. But yeah, I think he finishes in the top 10.
All right, Jeff. Yeah, 2-time Irish Open champion as well.
Yeah, he won the Irish Open 2 weeks ago. He didn't play last week, but it's a small detail. He still won in a links course 2 weeks ago, and he won pretty dominantly with the 62 in the final round. So he's coming in here with the best form of anyone in the field. Hands down, win, second, third place in his last 3 starts. He's just played well over in Europe his career. He seems to challenge at every European Tour event he goes in these days, and he just feels more comfortable here. And he has never top 10'd at the Open before, but I think that is going to change this year. Not necessarily my pick to win, because I still think he needs a little bit more experience. I just don't know if he's there in majors mindset-wise, but he's definitely going to have a chance. He's coming in with some fantastic form. So yes, I chase this. I think he's going to end up in the top 10 this week.
All right, well, Dustin Johnson finished 35th at the U.S. Open, missed the cut in his last tournament. So chase or fade, he'll finish outside the top 20 this week, Jeff.
I do not know what's going on with Dustin Johnson. It's been a strange season. He's got the one win, but he's flashed some form in majors. He's also not been good in some really weird spots. So, top 20 Dustin, it's usually pretty automatic. I'm going to still fade it. I'm going to fade it. I really think there's something else going on here, either with mindset or maybe an injury or something. And I just don't trust it right now. The Open has been he's been okay for Dustin. He's flashed some form there. He finished runner-up way back in 2012. Kind of blew it in the final round, though. But I don't know. Coming into a new course, a new link-style course where around the green play is going to be probably pretty heavily weighted, and maybe power isn't as big a deal. I'm going to fade this. I think that Dustin Johnson is going through a few things now, either with the swing or something off the course. I don't know, but I just don't think he's 100%. And I'm going to fade that he finishes inside the top 20.
Okay, Reed, chase or fade, he'll finish outside the top 20 this week.
Fade. I think he finishes inside the top 20.
Ooh,
and when we look at recent form, which is clearly not my forte, because yes, John Rahm did win the Irish Open. You got to kind of, take this with a grain of salt. I think when you look at Dustin Johnson, this guy's one of the top 3 golfers in the world. Yes, when you look at majors that fit his mold, it's the U.S. Open where he can use his distance. It's Augusta where he's played well. But let's look at his majors just this season outside of the U.S. Open, where he finished, I believe, in the mid-30s. He finished second at the PGA, second at Augusta. You look at the Players, which is not a major, but he finished 5th. And you look at his WGC performances, he's all finished with pretty high finishes. And so when you look at a guy who potentially doesn't have the best form coming in, and yes, the Rocket Mortgage or some of these smaller tournaments, we haven't seen him necessarily perform well where he should. A tournament that he definitely wins, maybe not majors. A top 20 for Dustin Johnson is not out of the realm of possibility at all. And if you're talking about DraftKings, this guy coming in right now is probably 10 or 11% owned. You get him and Brooks in that range. I mean, starting a lineup, if you want to go stars and scrubs, those 2 guys, I think would be a fine way to start at the top there, because Dustin Johnson is one of the best in the world.
My dudes, how about some history, though? An Englishman has not won the Open Championship since Nick Faldo in 1992. So, Reed, chase or fade for me. An English golfer will actually finish inside the top 5 here at Royal Portrush this weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to fade that they finish inside the top 5. I do think 1 or 2 of these guys will finish in the top 10. Justin Rose is someone I think that we're all sleeping on a little bit. If you just look at his Open history over the last 5 or 6 years, he's top 10 in strokes gained total. And again, when looking at strokes gained par 4, par 5, ball striking, this is Justin Rose. And you have a guy like Tommy Fleetwood, again, who has performed well at the Open Championship. If you look at total driving as a statistic, Tommy Fleetwood is a guy that does hit it far and hit it straight. So those 2 guys are probably my top picks. But inside the top 5, I think it's a little bit. I think the guys like Rory and some of these other guys are playing a little bit better. But top 10 is not out of the realm of possibility.
All right, Jeff, what do you think the chances are an Englishman finishes inside the top 5?
I think it's pretty good. I like most of these guys we got up on the screen, too. I think Reed's right. I think Justin Rose probably just gets overlooked again, like he does seem to be every major these days. But go down the list. I think Paul Casey is in way better form than people realize. I mean, T5 his last time out, played solid at the U.S. Open, so he's definitely one of my choices this week. But you look at a guy, Tyrrell Hatton and Matthew Fitzpatrick. Matthew Fitzpatrick especially is someone you need to look at on DraftKings. I would not be shocked if he had a big Open week. He's been playing very good golf, just put out a win in Germany, playing good on the links too the last couple weeks. So I like Casey a lot. I think if I had to pick a top Englishman, he'd be my choice. But I think Matthew Fitzpatrick for DraftKings play definitely should be someone you look at.
All right, you 2 are free to go. We're going to wrap this show up with MLB Tears of Joy. That's coming up next.
Hi there, I'm Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Tom Brady turns 42 in less than 3 weeks, and according to ESPN Patriots reporter Mike Reese, those close to TB12 describe him as being excited as ever for the 2019 season. I mean, when has he not been excited? We've certainly heard from Brady more than usual. He got a Twitter back on April Fool's Day, and he hasn't been shy about letting people into his daily life via social media, whether it's family time or football stuff. Remember this tweet back on June 4th, the start of Patriots mandatory minicamp? Treat my first like my last, and my last like my first. Minicamp ended 2 days later. Brady was then asked about his contract because, well, he's been on record he wants to play till he's 45, and that's none of your business. That was his response. A month and a half has passed. Pat's training camp gets going in 10 days, which means the family affairs, the playful toss at UCLA with retired Rob Gronkowski, the reps with suspended Josh Gordon, all those types of things, they will be soon put on hold or come to an end. Brady's focus shifts to leading a Patriots offense with question marks and unknowns at O-line, wide receiver, and tight end. He has his work cut out for him in his 20th year. Good thing he's excited as ever
All right. Closing time.
All right, closing time. That's been stuck in my head all stinking
Yeah, I'm
day.
really sorry. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So the Sweat wrapping up with our dynamic baseball duo, James McCool and Chris Spagnuolo. It's exciting, right?
It is.
Yeah. Okay, time for Tears of Joy, gents. James, who's your top option from Tier 1 tonight?
It's got to be Trevor Story for me. I like this tier. Like Rafael Devers is another person I'm really high on. I wrote about him on my article over on DK or on the Playbook. But for this part, like I would say Charlie Blackmon, but I think that Trevor Story has so much more power, and what we really care about when we're taking this tier 1 is upside. And I think that Trevor Story has more upside than Charlie Blackmon. It would have been between those two, but I mean, Trevor Story has a 553 slugging percentage and a really high expected home run rate per plate appearance. So I'm going to Trevor Story.
Chris, you like Trevor Story? Someone else in Tier 1 stand out to you here?
I'll go to Charlie Blackmon. I like the spot here for a lefty hitter going against Derek Rodriguez. He's just a little bit worse versus lefties, and we're trying to find a tiebreaker, so that would be the one for me. And Blackmon, too, also has the best WRC plus out of that Rockies lineup today, a 133 for him. So a nice spot overall, getting leadoff, so he should have some extra at-bats. I think it's a nice spot all around for Charlie Blackmon.
All right, let's drop down to Tier 4 here, Christopher. Who is your guy and why?
I think it'd be Pablo Sandoval for me here, because I think the spot going against Chichi Rodriguez, a guy who's been really, really bad versus lefties so far in the majors. Pablo can hit from both sides of the plate. That's going to be a positive for him. I think he's also going to go a bit overlooked here, even though he's in Coors. He also has a 375 batting average allowed to lefties from Chichi so far in a limited major league sample size. It's going to be really benefiting everybody coming from that left side of the plate here. I don't care if the Giants went off in the early game. I think Pablo's still a nice spot here to do it in the night game as well.
James, you going in a different direction?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Carlos Santana. Another guy that I wrote up, and part of that Indian stack that we talked about earlier that both Chris and I are on is kind of like a contrarian spot. Carlos Santana is somebody who, once it starts getting hotter, he just hits home runs like no one's business. He's done it for the last couple of years straight. It's starting to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and he's just hitting home run after home run after home run. So I really like Carlos Santana in this spot. I also agree that Pablo Santana is a perfectly fine play, but it's going to be Carlos Santana for me.
All right, what do you say about Tier 5 here, James?
Yeah, Tier 5 is Max Muncy, and it's not close. He doesn't even really deserve to be in this tier. He should be in the tier above this, or maybe 2 tiers above this. But Max Muncy is one of those left-handed hitters for the Dodgers lineup that's just going to destroy poor Zach Eflin in this Phillies bullpen. I don't have any reservations in using him in every format, cash, GPP, tiers, single game, whatever. He's one of my favorite plays on the day.
Chris, do you agree Max Muncy not even close?
I think he's a very strong play here, but I'm generally going to favor Coors in this spot. I like Muncy, but it's very possible one of the other Dodgers is the one who puts up the home run production in that spot here versus Eflin, because there's so many lefties there who can get to Eflin in a big way. And I think Muncy's in a great spot, but Daniel Murphy's a guy who's going to have guys on base in front of him. He's in a really strong spot as well, getting that same lefty spot versus Derek Rodriguez. And in Coors, and I'm trying to stack as much Rockies as I can. So even though I love Muncy, I do think Murphy might be a little bit safer. And if people are going to go to a guy like Muncy, I think you can go to Murphy at less ownership than he probably should have.
Lots of options in Tier 6, the tier of the working man. Who do you like, Chris?
It's going to be Michael Chavis for me, the most working man out of all of them, I'm sure. I like that Boston stack overall, and I think because I'm really heavy on Coors and the other tiers I'm going to, I think Chavis is a guy who also should have guys on base in front of him. We talked about Thornton's struggles earlier. Again, a very hot day in Boston, and Chavis is a guy who has that power. He's got over a 280 batting average, good at generating runs, has a lot of pop. I think that's all the stuff you want to get when you are in the tier of the working man.
Man, he made one hell of a catch last night, too, against the Dodgers, if you stayed up for that 12-inning marathon. James, taking a look at Tier 6 here, who sticks out to you? Is there a clear-cut favorite in your opinion?
Probably not a clear-cut favorite. I think this is a pretty diverse group of the working man, but I'm actually going to stay in that same stadium, just on the other team. I'm going to go with Kevon Biggio. I think that Rick Porcello is one of the worst pitchers in the MLB at this point in his career. He's just degraded so far from where he was, and he's giving up massive contact, especially left-handed hitters. And Biggio is somebody who, his plate contact skills are just incredible. He doesn't strike out. He hits the ball hard as hell. He's going to have a huge, huge, huge second half of the season. And I think that it can be one of those spots for him against Rick Porcello where he kicks it off in a big way, especially in tiers where I don't have to worry about price. I love getting him in this lower tier.
All right, James, slate-approved pick time. Who is your lock of this 10-game slate?
It's Cody Bellinger, just point blank, period. Put him wherever you can. I think that he's going to hit at least one home run today. I'm going to call that now.
Okay, mark the tape.
Okay, wow, we're on home run watch as well.
Yeah. Chris, who you going with for your slate approved pick?
It's got to be Charlie Blackmon for me. I love the upside of some of these other guys in that price tier, but Blackmon is a guy who's hitting leadoff at Coors versus a bad pitcher. Sometimes it's simpler than we make it out to be. I think Blackmon's just a guy to trust in both cash and tournaments today.
Guys, good stuff. We appreciate you helping us out and helping everyone at home. So make sure you guys, if you don't have your lineups filled out right now, you have like 6 minutes. So
you gotta hurry.
I would go do that. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back again tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, you and me.
6 o'clock
Tell
p.m.
them where.
Oh, man. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, most importantly, the DK Live app, which if you do not have the DK Live app, go download it right now. Please just do it for the people.
It would be a smart decision. And watch us tomorrow. That's another smart decision.
Yeah, you should definitely watch us tomorrow.
Please watch us tomorrow.
Oh, my God. Tell your friends, please. Tell your mom.
Yeah. My mom's like, what is the show you do?
My mom's like, I don't understand. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow at 6.